Good to see you. Oh, man. So this morning, we're picking up where we left off. And if you don't know where we left off, shame on you. You got to go back, check out the YouTube channel or look on Facebook for last week's message. But yeah, we're covering Revelation, and a lot of people are scared of Revelation, and a lot of people who like Revelation scare me. But the truth is there's something really powerful in this message. And today is one for people who have really been tested. And I don't know if you know exactly what I mean by tested, and maybe you're not being tested right now, or maybe you don't even remember a time where you really felt like you were tested. Honestly, mostly life is kind of hard already. I mean, life has got its stuff. Work is usually hard in some way. You know, raising kids is usually tricky. Okay, being a kid now is tricky. Probably always has been, right? You know, navigating what you do in the workplace is tricky. Resisting peer pressure, hard at any age, turns out. It's not just being a youth, it's being an adult too. That's hard, right? Communicating and keeping your relationships going smoothly. As if there is such a thing, right? Yeah, you got to work for that. That's tricky, right? That's hard. But sometimes life is harder than hard. There are moments in people's lives that are really just bad. You know, it's more than the usual. It's like, yeah, life is hard, and we're all prepared for that. I mean, people tell us that from the moment we're old enough to hear it. Oh, life's hard, man. Life's hard. Get used to it. Okay, life is hard. But sometimes people, seriously, they just get up in the morning and they put their clothes on and they brush their teeth or they showered or whatever, and they open up the door, and it's like somebody hits them in the face with a sledgehammer. There are moments like that in life. And maybe you can't remember anything personally that was recent, but you probably know somebody that has had that happen. And honestly, some of the strongest people you know, some of the people that you respect the most for their faith and for their integrity and all that stuff could probably share a story like that. And we'll get to that later, why that is, how is that? But it's the truth. People go through things that are worse than hard. Kids get hurt. I always think that's bad. I mean, when kids get hurt, I'm like, I like stop everything mentally. Do you know what I'm talking about? You just stop. When you work real hard towards something for a long time and then it just gets ruined, poof. Or you lose somebody unexpectedly, or maybe expectedly. Maybe it's a long process of losing somebody and then you lose them, and it's just this extremely wicked thing to live through. Sometimes people really do just get hit with a hammer. People get violent. People just betray you. People surprise you. And as a believer in Jesus, this is so important. You have to realize in those moments that your perspective in that moment is really being messed with. You know, whatever you thought, whatever you believe that you actually believe, in those hard moments, your perspective is getting like torqued on, isn't it? You know, you question, is everything I believe really true or not? Do I actually believe what I said that I believe? And it's really, really important in those moments of testing what voices you are choosing to listen to. I tell you that from experience because my experience is my own and the people that I know best. When those hard things have occurred, the temptation is to do one of two things. You either run closer to God or you run far, far away. It's your perspective that's being wrestled with. It's like there's an ultimatum. You know what an ultimatum is? You know, you have either option A or option B, but there really is no C. Am I going to get closer or am I going to run farther? And this message from Revelation today, that's what this is really, really about. This message, and of course I shared with you last week that John shares this revelation, this message given to him from God to give to all of the churches in this area, this place called the province of Asia. Remember what I said last week? Left-hand Turkey, okay? All of these places, the big cities, big regions, and this week it's this place called Smyrna. You're like, where is Smyrna? Just Google it. Where was Smyrna? You can do it, okay? Yeah, I don't need to show you the map. I don't even know that you care, but you can look it up if you want to. Big city, nice city, very wealthy city. Probably the most beautiful city in the province of Asia. I mean, very impressive architecture, gardens, and just feats of engineering and wealth and pretty things built all over this place called Smyrna. And this is John's message to give to Smyrna. He says to the messenger of the church of Smyrna, some of your translations say to the angel of the church of Smyrna, which is basically God's messenger, okay? Messenger. These are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. That's Jesus. It's code. That's Jesus. The guy who died and then relifed himself. Okay, there's not too many people that claim that. Jesus claims that. His followers claim that. This is from Jesus to you, church. He says, I know your afflictions and your poverty. You are having some bad things happen to you right now. That's what he says. And I know them. I know them. You know, if this is a message for you, I think that's actually very important to hear that. That you could take that to heart. That whatever a person has gone through or is going through currently, God would say to you, I actually know. It's not lost on me. I am paying attention to you. I know about every tear. I know about the sleepless nights. I know about the abuse you took. I know about the things that were said. I know about the things you've lost. I know them. And I know your poverty. Yes, affliction's very bad, and if life wasn't hard enough already, you're going through some poverty. That's what they were going through as Christians. They were going through some poverty. They had less than what they probably thought they needed. Less food, less money. And we'll get to why that is in just a second. It says, I know these things well. I think for some people, for some of you, it might actually just start to comfort you a little bit to hear God say that to you. I know. I know. And then he says this strange thing. He says, yet you are rich. Yet you are rich. Exclamation mark. What could he be talking about? Oh, we're getting to that. He's going to get real specific here. And this isn't specific to your life. You aren't experiencing this, I don't think. He says, I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Whew. That's kind of rough. The synagogue of Satan. I mean, it sounds like a, band or something, like wicked. That sounds bad, right? The synagogue of Satan. I know about the slander of those who say they're Jews and are not. He's saying, I know about the slander that people are speaking from those who say that they're with God and that they're His children, and the truth is, in their heart, because of what they are at heart, they're not. They may think, they may act, but they're not. They're actually doing the work of evil by what they do. I know about them. And what in the world is he talking about? See, there were a lot of Jewish people already in Smyrna. See, when the gospel message moved out from Jerusalem, and persecution is what pushed the message out. People were getting jailed and stoned to death and thrown into prison and losing all their stuff and people taken off with stuff. And I mean, it was a bad deal, right? But the persecution drove people out into the hill country, and then it drove them from the hill country out into other places, other provinces. And people were actually driven not just out of fear, but as time went on, the fear did something. It morphed into something else. It morphed into courage. And it drove them to share what was most real to them, and so they began to see themselves as actual missionaries to these places, and some of them were picked, and some of them made it to Smyrna. And of course, the problem is not that the people of the non-believing world, the atheistic world, or the Greek gods believing world, wasn't that they found that to be incredibly offensive. It was the people that were supposed to be God's people found it the most offensive, and they went out of their way to cause as much trouble as they possibly could for these new believers in Christ, this movement. And so they probably, most of the time, were not brave enough or audacious enough to actually go in these foreign places and just start, kidnapping people and killing them and all that good stuff. But they definitely took advantage of the fact that nobody understood what these people were really about. And so they passed all kinds of half-truths, partial truths on out there because, well, let's face it, when somebody is your enemy, you don't mind so much if other people become their enemies. And so, hey, if I pass on some half-baked, sort of almost a true, but nothing really true about it, kind of a lie, and somebody else takes it really funny, and they go and they, what's this all about? We hear you, burn you at the stake. I mean, it wasn't me that did it, so I guess I'm okay, right? Wrong. Wrong. And so there were a lot of things that people said, well, they're doing this secret cannibal stuff behind closed doors. Drink my blood, eat my body. They're doing these weird rituals behind closed doors, and it's disgusting, and it ought to be put to a stop. That's what they're holding these disgusting orgies. They call them their fellowship meals, love feasts. So it must be some sexual thing, and it's disgusting, and it needs to be put a stop to. Right? They're against family values. They're atheists. They're traitors. They refuse to worship Caesar as the Lord. Why? Are they conspiring to bring down the government? Seems highly suspicious. They're arsonists and terrorists. They're always talking about the world going up in flames, and then something goes up in flames. I wonder if it was them. Wouldn't surprise me. You laugh. What happened with Nero? Everybody now suspects it was Nero, burns Rome. He wanted to build another, a better one. But whose fault is all of this death and destruction? Probably the Christians. This is what Jesus says. He says to them, he says, do not be afraid of what you're about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Ugh. Yeah, I know, right? If I'm in Smyrna, and I believe I'm part of this movement, I don't know. I want to say I'm such a believer. My mind is not focused on all of that stuff, but I don't think there's anything about that gives me the warm and fuzzies. I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to sit in a dirt floor dungeon and have to hope that somebody's going to bring me something to eat every day. I don't want rats chewing on me. I don't want somebody to come in and swipe my family away and put them on a slave ship and take them off to some foreign country while I'm not there to protect them. I don't want any, I just don't want any of that. He says, don't be afraid of what you're about to suffer. You're going to get beat up real bad for a while. This is what's in there. This is what's in there. You're like, Pastor James, what has gotten into you? I'm just telling you, that's what's in there. Not as fluffy and warm as I thought you were. Well, I am fluffy, but you're going to get beat up real bad for a while. How long a while? It's 10 days. What is 10? It's just 10 days? I mean, we can get through 10 days, right? Well, 10 days doesn't mean 10 days. It's like when you ask somebody, hey, how long's it been since you were in college? Well, it's been a minute. It ain't 60 seconds. Okay? It's actually very much what that is. They would in this culture, they would talk about things in terms of 10 days. Just like the number 7 always meant all, okay? 10 days was like a temporary amount of time, a short time, but it's temporary. He didn't know exactly how long it would be. How long is it going to be? 10 days. And so he says this persecution, this suffering you're going to go through, this testing is going to last a while. So two things right away. And you need to hold on to these two things. And I know. Christians of America, you're not being persecuted like this presently. I understand. I'm not trying to make it, I'm not doing one of those things that people do. The persecution you are receiving is terrible. Like, I don't think you're getting anything that's quite compared to this. Maybe you lose a job. Maybe you don't get hired because somebody thinks something about you. I mean, that's been going on a long time. That isn't exactly this, but it is talking about testing. And he says about testing, he says, you're going to be tested. Okay, tested, and that it's not forever. Not forever. And I know that nobody thinks, oh, I can't wait to get tested. Look, there's nothing in me that says, where is the sign-up sheet to get tested? I want to put my name at the front of the list. Nobody thinks that way. And if you do, I don't know about you. See, when things are happening and they're just bad and they're hard and they're shocking and the terror of it hits you and what's going to happen and the uncertainty, okay, there's a moment of time you go through, I just call it the shock of terror. Right? Because whatever you imagined your life to be when you started, this thing hits you, and all of a sudden you're in like panic mode because you're trying to figure out, okay, but what is my life going to be now? If I've lost a thing, or this has disappeared, or this person's not in my life anymore, this shock of terror comes over you because you have no idea now. You thought you knew, and now you don't. And in those moments, as that goes on, you kind of become accustomed to things a little after a while. You get some real bad news. Hey, somebody's got cancer, or something happened with your kid, or something like that. The shock hits you, but then you're kind of like trying to figure out how to wade forward. Like, oh, what do I do? How do I think? What should I feel? I mean, should I feel terrible? I do feel terrible. Well, am I always going to feel terrible? Am I always going to feel this way? And as time goes on, and you get sort of accustomed to that, and you find a little bit of a way to survive, two things come up. Everybody is pretty much the same in this. When you realize there's nothing you can do to control the situation, or you've exhausted all of your options to fix it and make it better, you get to this point where you say, okay, I just need to know a couple of things. Number one, tell me this doesn't last forever. Tell me sometime, some way, somehow, this gets better. Okay? Because if it gets better, if you're telling me it won't be forever, I think I can survive that. If I just knew, if I could hold on to that. That's what he says. It's not forever. And that you're being tested. Well, what does that mean, you're being tested? Because when I think about testing, I think, I just think about going in to take the SAT or something, like it's 3.5-hour test and then another 3.5-hour test. I mean, it sucks. I said it. Well, the thing is, if it's actually a test, you can survive a test. You can survive a test. Why? Because you know that it ends, and because you know that it's not for no purpose. You know that a test is meant to produce something. It's supposed to produce something in you that you did not have before. You're going to walk away from a test somehow inexplicably better. And in the middle of a test, you have no idea. I mean, you have no idea. You aren't thinking about that stuff. I mean, I'm just going to be this most amazing person. Yeah, well, this still sucks. You're going to be able to help so many people. Yeah, well, you know what? I'd rather not. That's what's going through your mind. But at least if you know somehow or another this produces something, and that something is going to put you in better shape than you were before the test, you could survive that. Remember Peter, anybody? Cephas. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Cephas. I name you Cephas." The rock. Rocky. Literally meant stone. I mean, he was the Rock before Dwayne Johnson. You know, he was Rocky before Sylvester Stallone. He was, Jesus looked at him and said, "You are the rock. I call you the rock. And on this rock, I will build the foundation of my church." But think about that. That's what Jesus said. And then Jesus, you find out, was fully prepared for the fact that when push came to shove and things got a little bit ugly, Peter would run away. And here's the thing, Peter never dreamt that he would run away. If you look at the conversation between Jesus and Peter, that back and forth between them and that moment where he's like, you're gonna run away. In fact, you're gonna basically deny who I am to you 3 different times in public. And Peter's like, "No, never. Never, ever, ever would I do that. Not me." And he was Jesus' most vocal, most aggressive, most ardent alpha male supporter. I mean, he was just like, I don't know if that qualifies as toxic masculinity or not, okay? And I say that in jest. But I mean, he was just like, "Never, never, never. I am armed to the teeth. They come near you, I'm going to chop stuff off." And they tried. And then when Peter is tested, Peter believed he was everything, all that and a bag of potato chips. And when he was tested, it was only then that Peter could see what Jesus had been talking about the whole time. And listen to this. This is how Peter described testing. Same Peter, but after the fact. He says, "Though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials, these have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine, and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." See, when trouble comes to a person of Christ, a believer in Jesus, okay, it's like proving out gold. And you probably haven't proven out any gold unless you worked for a jeweler, okay? That's not something that happens, You buy a ring at wherever you buy rings from, and you look at the little stamp on the bottom, it says, 14 karat or 24 or whatever, and you go, "Oh, look at that, Phew, I got a certificate of authenticity." But back in the day, when you paid for something big and you really wanted to, really had to pay big, you'd either bring gold or you'd bring coinage that was connected to gold. And so, if somebody brings you 5 bars of gold to pay for your farm, you're kind of like, well, I mean, I want to be honest and all, but let's just make sure let's make sure we're all on the up and up. Because the truth is, gold can be mixed up with all kinds of things inside of it. Other metals and fake, not gold. And so what they do is, they get a real hot fire and they melt that gold. And of course, what does gold do? It kind of bubbles to the top. And and here's the thing: if there's other stuff in there, it's obvious because it separates. And there's just no 2 ways about it. Well, this gold had about this much of something else inside of it, so that means it's this pure. And they still do this stuff. Peter is saying, your faith, which is, by the way, is more valuable than gold. We'll see in a minute why. Okay, when troubles come, the things that you have gone through have come. Okay, there is purpose. Your faith is being refined by fire. When trouble comes, it's like heating up your life to a point where you can see how much of what you thought was faith and how much of your faith is actually just kind of like other stuff. Maybe not faith in Christ, but faith in other things. You know, faith that this will be exactly what I want. Faith that I am the smartest of all. You know, faithful, mirror, mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all? I believe that I am. You know, it's all these kind of little pathetic, lame things come bubbling to the top when real heat gets put on your life. And you find, and I'm not talking about melting stuff, I'm talking about what's really going on in here. You find when you really get some heat on stuff that wasn't really true, it wasn't really going to hold up, you really can't go on just believing that anymore. And it does something. It forces you to pick out what is the thing and what isn't the thing. What's true about life, what's true about me, what's true about God, and maybe what isn't actually. When I first believed, I have trouble with this because when I say I first believed, I was a teenager, and my belief, I'm telling you, was pretty chintzy, okay? I want to say chintzy, right? You know, I've got some gold in my pocket. Well, we'll see. And so, you know, I'm 18, I'm not even quite 18 years old yet, and, you know, I had the spark of faith. I believed God was definitely there. I believed this Jesus was definitely supposed to be who he said he was. I had this belief that, you know, God definitely has a plan for my life, and you know, things are going to shape up according to the way he wants, and things will generally, in the end, everything's going to be good. I believed that, and I would tell people that I believed that. And so, you know, I'm leaving high school, and things are good, and I'm on my way to college, and it's a pretty good school, and it's basically paid for, and I'm on my way, and I get in there, and like 6 weeks in, I just get like extremely, utterly, totally like ill, and nobody knows what's wrong with me. And I'm like, come on, man, I'm having a good time here. I'm like, I'm off to the races. I'm actually doing pretty good. I even started to study. I never used to study. Turns out you got to do that in college if you're going to like pass. Whew, what a shocker that was. So, you know, and things are going well. And I get sick, and they're just like, you know, listen, buddy, we got to do all these tests, and we got to put you in a hospital, and you're going to, you know, I mean, I don't know. What do I look like 70 or 80 pounds lighter? I'll tell you what I look like. I look like a person who is dying. Because that's what I was doing. I started to lose weight like uncontrollably. Couldn't eat. That really helps. And so one day, I had to come home from college, so sick, couldn't be there anymore. I was just like, I'm going to come home and be like a cat. At least I'll die at home, right? And so I get up one day and walk past the mirror in the bathroom, and I go, that guy looks like death. And it just kind of hit me, that's me. Like, I'm dying. And so I ended up in the hospital, and a whole year of like in and out and getting surgery and stuff to fix it, and oh my gosh, I'd rather not. I'd really rather not. And the truth is, in that, whether I liked it or not, I was forced to deal with most of the stuff that I believed about Jesus in my life that really didn't hold up. I believe in Jesus so long as he makes my whole life shape up the way I expected. There was no way for me to see that. It wasn't possible in my 18-year-old brain. It just gives you this space to see if you're actually made of the thing that you think you are. There's a purpose in it. This is the truth. At 17, 18 years old, you don't think about eternity very much. And then when you see that image of yourself gaunt and you just came out of a camp or something, not the good kind, and you look at yourself and you go, well, I knew I could die. I just didn't think it would ever be anytime soon. I thought that was just kind of a given. That's impossible. And Jesus' message to me in that moment was, well, actually, you don't know the time. There is no given. You don't. And all of a sudden, I have to deal with that. Oh. Now, spoiler alert, I didn't. Be lighthearted for a minute, right? Here I am. And I like to be alive. Most of the time. Yeah. Peter thought he was amazingly faithful. Well, it's not that there was no faith, but he needed the opportunity to see more of what was inside. And I'm not saying that God, in His His omnipotence and His wisdom and some strange, sadistic, version of God looked at him and said, I can't wait. I'm going to crush Peter. I'm going to embarrass him. I'm going to humiliate. He's not this mean spirit. He simply says, I'm going to allow the devil to test. And he's been given permission to test you. He says that. He says that. He's been given permission to test you. But I have prayed for you that you will remain faithful, right? Lo and behold, that's what happens. But part of turning Peter into the rock was Peter seeing what his faith was made of. Is it actually about trust in Jesus, or is it about, I'm going to be this big, great thing? What is it, Peter? And that testing, amazing. If you look in Acts later on and you see some of the things that Peter says in public about Jesus in front of people who are threatening to kill him, and it's believable because they've already killed people, he basically just kind of tells them off in the Christian way, like, look, you may not like this, but this is what I have to do, so I'm going to keep doing it. And it was written, people were amazed at the courage of this band of men. They were amazed. This is a different man because of the testing that he experienced and that Jesus brought him through. But there's something important that we haven't looked at yet. And it's the, what do I need to do factor. See, because testing doesn't just produce unless there's something special going on in here, right? I mean, when you go through testing, if you haven't noticed, everybody that goes through testing does not come out better for it. At least it doesn't look like it yet. In fact, sometimes people go through hard tests, and they come out mean and nasty. Worse than they were before. Have you noticed this? Have you? I mean, that guy at work, I know what's wrong with him. yeah. In fact, most of the angstiness and the frustration and whatever you call it in your terms that you witness in the world around you, and you go, what is wrong with that person? I bet 9 times out of 10, it was somebody went through testing totally unprepared for how to receive it or to think about it. No compass. And so, Jesus writes this. This is the most important thing I'm going to say. So, that's why I put on a shirt today, okay? It's important. He says, be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who is victorious will not be hurt at all by the second death. Faithful even to the point of death. And I will give you life as your victor's crown. There's something that has to happen in a person in order to receive testing and to come out ahead of where they were before. And Jesus is pointing straight at it. You have to let your perspective be changed. What does he say is your victor's crown? What is the prize? Is Is it all of the accomplishments that you will rack up? Stay faithful to me, and I will give you the victor's crown of what? Of major accomplishments, of being talked about for years and years and years after you're gone. You know, what am I going to? I'm going to give you the best family of all of the families of the world. It's going to be amazing. People are going to write books about you. You're going to be on, Dr. Dobson. This is going to be amazing, okay? Stuff. You're going to have the nicest stuff, the very nicest stuff. And you're going to have so much stuff, you're not even going to know what to do with all the stuff. You're going to have like a yard sale like every weekend. You're going to have so much stuff. Doesn't seem that tempting when you put it that way, Pastor James. The problem is, see, all of those things that we are terrified of losing, we put those in place of the victor's crown. Those to us have become the prize. And when we're born into this world, the world tells us nonstop, this is the goal. Meet your goals. You're going to have a goal. You're going to have more stuff. You're going to get to this place. You're going to be comfortable in retirement. You're going to have, people are going to look at you and go, I want to be just like that, right? Those are the things that we're wired from birth to believe. And when testing takes place, you have to let go of that perspective. You have to. In order to accept the real crown that he's offering. He's saying, this is the victor's crown, life. I'm going to give you unending life. How about that? Yeah, your yard would look better if you didn't do this Christianity thing, or you're going to be more impressive to more people on social. But here's the thing, I'm offering you life if you'll be faithful. This is the victor's crown. This is the prize. And most of us need an absolute miracle to even kind of crack that door open. Don't we? It takes something. It really takes something. How many people just go around thinking about eternity? He's saying, shift your perspective. This is what it's about. It's not about this life. This life is not the prize. And so many of us are just totally duped for most of our lives. Let's be real. Most of our lives, we are duped into thinking about this life as the prize. If I follow Jesus, it'll get me this. If I follow Jesus, it'll get me that. You know what? Following Jesus may get you plenty. There's a lot to say about following Jesus. There's a lot to say about what it does for relationships, what it makes possible in your life that was not possible before. Just talk about miracles. Miracles have happened for people. They've happened for me. But you can't look at life through the lens of, this is it. This is the prize. Oh, it's bigger. So much bigger. And the question becomes, am I willing to let go of this life as the prize? Would I allow that? Would I let Jesus in to start to shift my prescription a little bit? Would I? The truth is that never becomes easy. It doesn't. You get better at it. You get faster. You recognize things quicker. You recognize what's going on in yourself. Become aware. And you act. It changes you. What you believe in that moment changes you. But the truth is, the temptation to hang on to this life as a prize, I don't think it ever goes away. As long as you're walking around and breathing, as long as there's really good food out there to eat, as long as there's really nice cars out there that you could get your hands on, as long as there's, big amounts of money you can make really fast, almost effortlessly, the temptation is always there. It's always pulling. It's like gravity. Spiritual gravity. Honestly, there's a terror that comes over a person when they hear this stuff because they're like, I don't think I can. I don't think I can. Good news. You want some? I feel like it's been a little while since I gave you any. The John that wrote this revelation down, he wrote a lot of things. He wrote the Gospel of John, which is this incredible account of the life and ministry of Jesus, the things he said, and it's great. And then he writes a few little letters, kind of like supplements, supplements to the church, to build them up, cause them to remember some things about what's true. And in the middle of one of those letters, and the first one we have, first letter of John, he's talking about the different viewpoints, the different voices that the world pushes out there. Well, you're going to lose this, or this is terrifying. You should be scared if this ever happens, or this blah, 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 blah. And he just makes this very simple comparison. He says, he who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. There's a somebody in you that is a bigger deal than all of the competing voices, all the distractions, all the look, worry, worry, worry. There's somebody, not a something, a somebody, the Spirit of God Himself, who has come to dwell in your heart as a believer. And He's saying, that guy, real big. And His purpose is to do miracles inside of you. And this is the miracle. This is the miracle. Tests may come, will come. Some you've already gone through. But this is the miracle. The He who is in you, the He that is greater than all of what you were before and everybody else around you, is there to pull you across the finish line. And my suggestion to you is to pray a prayer of hope, a lot like Brent was just talking about this morning earlier. We're going to sing a song here in a moment. It's just kind of a profession of faith that God actually is enough. God is enough. But you're going to, be tempted to think, I don't know if I believe it or not. I don't know if I can. I want to. This is Jesus saying, He who's in you is greater than the one who's in the world. If you just make the decision to say, yes, that's what I want, God help me. He'll bring you across the finish line. And you will find yourself making gains in places you never imagined that you could make a gain. Being generous in places you never imagined yourself you could be generous. Saying no to things you never thought you could say no to. It starts with that. Am I willing to let go? I don't know if I can. I'm willing to let go if Jesus would actually help me. That's the statement we ought to make. God, help us. John says He'll be faithful. Go ahead, Brent.